Hello, beautiful soul. I'm Shauna, luminary life coach for women of the Awakened Collective, ready to profoundly transform their lives by bringing to light the negative beliefs, perceptions, and wounds that are driving their life so they can reclaim their sovereignty, speak their truth, raise their consciousness, and move forward in the most radiant, authentic, and empowered way. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the fact that you've tuned in to listen. Maybe you are listening on my podcast, Know Yourself, or you are watching on my YouTube channel, Shauna Gulbrand Light. If you are new, thank you so much for checking me out. If you are a returning listener or viewer, thank you for your ongoing support. I invite you, if what I share resonates with you, to share this podcast, to share this video with the women in your circle. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, if you haven't already and you're on YouTube, click that subscribe button below, hit the bell for notifications, like the video, and once again, share this podcast or share this video with the women in your circle. As always, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what you're doing, what time of the day or evening that it is, my hope is that you are healthy, happy, and taking action steps on your highest excitements. Today, I will be talking about softening, the rise of feminine energy, and embodied truth, continuing my conversation on the topic of women speaking their truth. Now, I've done a great deal of research into books, programs, courses, teachers, groups, sisterhoods, looking at the content and the resources that are out there to help women speak their truth. Now, what I have seen so far, and this is not a judgment, this is an observation, is that most of the content leans towards helping the woman who speaks more passively reclaim her voice, speak her truth, advocate for herself, develop the skills necessary in building confidence in directly and honestly speaking her truth. Now that is fantastic. I've talked about that. I'm going to be continuing to talk about that. But there really isn't much in the way. Well, before I say that, let me say this. I used to facilitate a speaker sisterhood group. I met with a group of women twice a month, and we all worked on, or really they worked on, enhancing their public speaking skills, becoming a more effective public speaker, and wherever they were using that in their life. And that was fantastic. But what I want to talk about here are the women who don't have a problem speaking their truth, but they do it in an aggressive, insensitive, and hurtful way. They, in a sense, are fiercely defending their sovereignty, and they don't care whose toes they step on in order to do that. So there's another side of the coin that really isn't the focus. I've done some research as well, looking up what is out there in the way of resources that can help a woman soften her approach to speaking her truth. What I found is a lot of content and resources on how to bring more feminine energy, how to be more feminine. And again, this is not a judgment, it's just an observation. And I think that is fantastic too. So if that's something that you're called to do, I say, go for it. But I haven't seen anything really in the way of developing the skills to express her truth with compassion, but also with the confidence. So that's what I want to touch upon today, is that side of the coin. The woman who is more controlling and rigid and dominating and insensitive and hurtful when it comes to getting her needs met, right? So I'm not talking about the woman who is working with public speaking, or the executive woman who wants to, make more of an impact in her workplace. I'm talking about a woman like you who is on a journey of higher consciousness, a woman like you who is a student of transformation and change, and you are understanding that the new consciousness is emerging within you, and there are things that you would like to shift. And one of those things is learning how to speak, learning how to communicate your thoughts, your feelings, your needs, your values, your desires, your experiences, learning how to share the essence of who you are with confidence and with compassion. So, consciousness is on the rise, as well as feminine energy. And let me speak to both of those for a moment. The consciousness of the universe is rising. The consciousness of the planet is rising. The consciousness of humanity is rising. And then there is the rise of feminine energy. The rise of feminine energy in the truths that you speak and how you communicate them. There's an imbalance. All you have to do is look at the news. Look outside. Look what's going on in the world to see that there is a major unbalance. We are top heavy in masculine energy. That's changing though. The feminine is rising. That's changing. And that's what I'm talking about. It's about finding the balance. So for the woman who is more passive, she's looking to bring in more masculine energy. The woman who is more aggressive is looking to bring in more feminine energy. And then finding that balance within herself. Now, as we do that as individuals, that adds to the collective. We then add to the healing of the collective and of the planet. So maybe you're all about doing it because you want to see the change in the outside world. I mean, I want to see change in the outside world too. But why I've done all of this is because I need to find balance within myself, and I need to let go of personality and consciousness that is no longer part of the person that I prefer to be. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that. But for right now, I want to share with you some characteristics and personality traits of a woman who fiercely defends her sovereignty and aggressively speaks her truth. Now, I just want to say one other thing. For those women who are out there in the world advocating, your aggressive voice has its place. My focus here is on the most important relationships in your life. As you are journeying on your spiritual path, you may be understanding that parts of you have to go. Like, you just can't maintain this anymore. And you're looking to dissolve worn out parts of yourself, and you're looking to deepen the most important relationships in your life. That's where my focus is in sharing what I want to share with you today. Okay, again, let me come back. The personality traits and the characteristics of a woman who is more aggressive. Before I share these words with you, I invite you to be in a practice of conscious awareness, self-awareness, and notice within yourself if you are being triggered into a strong emotion, if you are sensing resistance to what it is I'm sharing or what you're hearing, or if you're becoming defensive to what it is I'm sharing and what you are hearing. So triggers, resistance, and defensiveness. I've said this before. These are your signposts. It is your soul, your vulnerable child, your higher self, your wounds, all saying, all those boxed up emotions deep in your belly, all saying, look here. This is where your healing needs to occur. So just wanted to throw that out there. Triggers, resistance, and defensiveness. So here's what I have for you, the personality traits and the characteristics of a woman who aggressively speaks her truth. She can be, most likely is, holds a lot of energy around. Self-righteous, self-absorbed, self-centered, and selfish. Rigid, aggressive, controlling, critical, manipulative, dominating, annihilating, verbally abusive, abrasive, forceful, defensive, reactive, angry, irritable, blames, insults, again, criticizes, threatens, accuses, is hurtful, insensitive, lashes out irrationally, has brute force eruptions, raging yang energy, puts her own needs and feelings first, disregarding the needs and feelings of others, spends time mending her relationships and apologizing, or maybe not. Maybe she stays in that sense of victimhood and doesn't really give a shit yet. But if you're listening to this, I imagine you are starting to care. Feels misunderstood and alone, can talk too much, talks as a defense, has an overactive throat chakra. The inability or the unwillingness to truly and deeply listen often interrupts conversations. She may come across as confident, demanding, passionate, and outspoken. She may steamroll others or come across as pushy or too harsh. She has no qualms about making her opinions known. She fights for what she believes in, and she is vocal about it. She appreciates environments where she can speak freely. She does not fear conflict, and she appreciates directness. So take a moment, check in with yourself. What did you notice, if anything, in the way of thought, feeling, something within you trying to emerge? Maybe you noticed some part of the narrative that's always playing in the back of your mind. Now, I'm not saying that aggressive, truth-speaking women are like this all the time, but they most likely can be like this when they're triggered, when they're in fear, when they have a strong need to get what it is that they want. I'm going to shift now to the idea, or coming back to that idea of feminine energy. And I'm going to talk for a moment about feminine and masculine energy. The feminine within you is the wise, intuitive voice that perceives your truth, perceives the truth. It is open, receptive side that holds the truth in a deep, knowing way. The feminine is passive, yielding, and creative, and her task is to be a vessel that contains our truth, our vision, and our essence. The masculine within us is that part of ourselves that takes action. The masculine controls and dominates and is aggressive, willful, focused, and direct. The task of the masculine is to be the vehicle that can boldly take your truth out into the world in a clear, honest, direct, and straightforward way. So the feminine holds the essence of your truth, has that deep knowing. The masculine then takes that knowing and brings it out into the world. So in regards to speaking truth, having that self-awareness of what's going on in your inner landscape, this is the truth of the matter. Say somebody invites you to go somewhere and you don't really want to go. In the past, you've made up little white lies, you've made excuses, or you've said yes when you really want to say no. And then what happens? Resentment, right? But when you have the balance, this is what it can look like. Let me check in. I was just asked to go do this thing. I don't know if I really want to go. Let me check in. I discover that my truth is I don't want to go. And I love the fact that this person invited me. In loving and respecting myself and never disappointing myself, I want to say no, but I want to have respect for myself and the person who invited me. Now you bring in the masculine energy. And that is the energy that then speaks that truth, because you've built that confidence and that courage to say to the person, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm going to pass. That's not something that really resonates with me, but thank you for thinking of me. And in the future, if something comes up, please don't hesitate to reach out to me again, but right now I can't make it. So that is holding the essence of your truth, the essence of who you are, remaining true to yourself, defining yourself, standing in your power, but then clearly, knowingly, directly, and honestly using the masculine energy to bring the truth forward. Now, the woman who aggressively speaks her truth holds more masculine energy. And what she needs to do is bring in that idea of the feminine and holding that truth and understanding what's triggering me to want to be aggressive. What am I afraid is going to happen if I'm not in control? And being really clear with herself and then developing those skills to calmly speak her truth. So more likely than not, the aggressive speaking woman holds more masculine energy. She can, if she feels called to, maybe it's someone like you, allow the rise of feminine energy, giving her the power to confidently and compassionately express the essence of who she really is, respecting herself and the people who matter most. She can learn to get her needs met while standing strong in her power, again, defining who she is, remaining true to herself, while also being sensitive to the needs and feelings of others by understanding what's triggering her to be manipulative, aggressive, accusatory, critical, and manipulative, just to name a few of those characteristics. I've lived my life as an aggressive truth speaker. I have been told, and I've mentioned this before, that I was painfully honest or brutally honest. And I used to wear that as a badge of honor. I built very strong, thick armor around me. The words passive and yielding used to terrify me. Like, no friggin' way am I yielding to anybody. You get out of my way. And passive, no way. I'm taking the stand, me first. I'm going to lead. I'm going to make the first move. Sometimes that can be really good, right? But not when it's being hurtful to the most important people in your life. My tipping point came when I finally and fully acknowledged the pain and suffering I was causing to the people who matter most to me. I experienced an an extremely uncomfortable wake-up call. And once the waters of that raging yang tsunami receded, and that took well over a week for me to even come out of my victimhood, an inkling to be able to see clearly, only then could I begin to see the lesson more clearly. And I made a promise to myself at that moment that I would never again engage in that kind of behavior. That meant it was time for me to fully soften, to remove my armor, and to take off that badge that I've been wearing and throw both of them in the trash. It was time for me to allow more feminine to rise within me, to be the person that I prefer to be, and to deepen the relationships that are most important to me. I can look back now with so much gratitude. I couldn't in the middle of it. I referred to it as a nightmare. But I can look back now and offer so much gratitude because it's exactly what I needed at exactly the right time I needed it. You see, that part of my personality and that old consciousness, I can't maintain that anymore. And I don't want to maintain that anymore. Remember I mentioned consciousness is rising. And this is happening for a lot of people. Yeah, many people, and I hope more people. But the old consciousness, the collective and the individual, it's not working anymore. So softening helps me achieve the goal of raising my consciousness and bringing about that balance of feminine and masculine energy within myself. As I heal myself, I add to the healing of the collective. I add to the healing of the planet. Another goal is being the person that I prefer to be. I don't want to be that person anymore. I'm getting ahead of myself, so let me stop there. I don't want to be that person anymore. And I choose to foster a more meaningful and loving and respectful relationship with the people that matter most in my life, especially my husband. So how have I gotten to this point? How did I do this? I'll share a little bit with you because it's been a journey and there's a lot of details in it, but I'll share some of the things. One, I took ownership and responsibility for the role I play, for the role I played and for the role I continue to play. And this is something that many of us don't want to look at. I've posed this question to coaching clients and to students. What role did you play? What role are you playing? And some of them can be open to that, but then some of them are completely closed off, still in that idea of victimhood and blame. And what do you mean? That wasn't me. That was that person did that to me. No, we are all in co-creations and we all play a role. So I started to look at the role I was playing in these relationships and how the role I was playing was affecting these relationships. First and foremost, even though I just said that first, is the practice of self-awareness. All day, every day, all day long, being in a practice of noticing what's going on within you, what's going on around you. The practice of conscious self-awareness is the first step for anyone on a journey of transformation and change. Things will transform and change if you give yourself the space to look at it. And that's my next thing. It's that willingness that I had to look at my own darkness, my own patterns, and my own rigidity. Wow, was it uncomfortable, and it was messy, and it was chaotic, and that's okay. Because it's brought me to where I am today. And I love consciousness work. because it helps me to be the person I want to be and to create the life that I want to create and to help bring that out into the world, exactly what I'm doing right now with this podcast and this video. Okay, so just a few steps that I took. I began to notice, become aware of the anger within me. And I came to understand that I was angry and irritable all the time. I also started looking at, I started processing my anger for number one, right? Because you don't want to hold on to it. You want to process it in a very constructive way. Someone who has brute force eruptions, who rages, who is aggressive in speaking their truth, that anger can show up very quickly. I could, at one point, go from calm to angry in about 0.2 seconds. So that anger would come out in a destructive way because I wanted to control and manipulate the people around me in order to get what I want, and I didn't know how to do it other than being aggressive and mean and hurtful. So looking at the anger, acknowledging the anger, processing the anger, big step. I also started to look at my control and my rigidity and the fears around that. So for a woman who, I don't want to use this term, I'm not going to use it. For a woman who likes to have control of her environment and the people around her, is holding an awful lot of fear. She needs to feel safe. So what it is, it's fear and uncertainty and that insecurity. So I started to look at how much control and rigidity I've had for most of my life, especially when raising my children. So I started to look at that with very honest, loving, compassionate, forgiving eyes. I simply needed to acknowledge it. Because again, the only way that I can change it, dissolve it, transform it, is by being honest with myself about that. And now talk about speaking truths. If you want to be able to speak truths to the people in your life, you need to be able to speak honest truths to yourself about your own anger, about your need to control, your rigidity, your abrasiveness, you being self-absorbed and selfish, looking at that and speaking those truths honestly to yourself. Another thing that I looked at was how many times I was apologizing. And it was often apologizing for my behavior and for the hurtful words that came out of my mouth. Because I was afraid, and that was the only way I knew how to get what I want. Let me talk for a moment here. All of this, all of these patterns, even those of you who speak passively, they are rooted in your fears, your perceptions, your childhood conditioning, your wounds, your traumas, your hurts, your disappointments, your sadness, in your mode of survival when you were a child. Also, for me personally, this was a learned behavior. I also didn't have much control at all over my life. So as I grew into an adult, that sense of survival turned into this need to control my environment. And I don't want to get too much into that. That will be for further conversations. But just know that your fears and your beliefs and your wounds and your trauma, your childhood, also in your inability or unwillingness to change, to look at your darkness and the unconscious patterns within you. So be willing. So I started looking at my apology tour, mending what I had broken, and it hurt a lot to know that my behavior needed apologies like I needed to apologize so much, but I was so grateful because the people who love and support me the most continued to forgive me. But I thought, how many more times can I hurt them before they're going to say, I'm done. Like, I don't want any part of you anymore because you haven't changed. You're the same person. So that was something else I looked at. And this was in varying degrees, but it was all part of a whole. I just worked with whatever was coming up in the moment. So look at yourself. Notice yourself. Be curious. Be honest. Be gentle when you explore and examine your patterns, your darkness, your control, your rigidity. Those of you who are listening, who you would say, yeah, this resonates with me. I aggressively speak my truth as a means of getting what I need and what I want. So all of that lowers our consciousness. And we are not looking to go back to old consciousnesses. Remember I said, I can't maintain this anymore, nor will I. What about you? What about your patterns and your behavior needs to go? What old consciousness? What parts of your personality need to go? And maybe this is part of it. Maybe this is one portion of your consciousness or your personality that you are ready to let go of. All right. I think I'm done. I feel complete. Be in harmony and relationship with yourself first. Notice yourself to know yourself. Until the next time. Aveo.